Hi, my name's Jeff Dean, and I'm Math Dad. I'm here to help you help your kids understand math. And today, I'm coming at you again with another lesson about fractions. Last time, in part 1, we talked about the importance of helping our kids understand the difference between a whole and a part, and how to go back and forth between them. We talked about how if we know the size of the whole, we should be able to partition it into certain size pieces, maybe into fourths, or into thirds, or into fifths, or any other size piece that we want, but they all have to be equal sizes. We also talked about that if I was to tell you the size of the piece or the size of the part and say this part is only 1/3, then we should be able to help our kids see that if it's 1/3, then it takes 3 of them to make the whole. Going back and forth in between those is one of the most important things for understanding fractions. But today I'm talking to you about another thing that really is a big difference between people who are successful with fractions and some people who struggle. And I'm going to start by asking you this question. Suppose I said that I ate 1/2 of my sandwich, but my daughter ate 1/4 of her sandwich. Who ate more sandwich? I'll give you a second to think about that. You know, the answer actually is, it depends. You might be thinking, what do you mean it depends? If one person ate half of a sandwich and another person only ate 1/4 of a sandwich, then the person who ate half must have eaten more. But the reason why it depends is because the thing that I never told you is how big was the sandwich when it started? What if one sandwich was this big and the other sandwich was this big? What if I ate 1/2 of this sandwich but 1/4 of this sandwich? What would happen? Well, let's take a look. If this was the sandwich that I ate, that's half right there. If this sandwich we ate 1/4 of it, well, there's a half and there's 1/4. And if we look at this, compared to this, they're actually the exact same size. So what happened there? Well, what we learned really quick is that size mattered. Because one of the whole sandwiches was, say, 1 foot long, and the other sandwich was only 6 inches long when we started. So I wasn't comparing equal pieces or equal sized wholes. You see, one of the things that happens when dealing with fractions is people get into this mindset of a half is a half and 1/4 is 1/4. But honestly, a half is only a half if both of them come from the same whole. That might sound kind of confusing. So let's take a look again. This was half of the small sandwich. This was half of the large sandwich. They're each a half, but they came from different sized wholes. So they can't really be compared as to this half and this half. It's only when we have the same size whole that we can actually start doing things with fractions. We can say 1/4 and 1/4. This fourth is the same size as this fourth. And I can count them up, 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4. Or I can add them up, 1/4 plus 1/4 is 2/4. But that's only if they come from the same size whole. Think about it this way. Imagine you and a friend were going shopping, and you were each going to buy a jacket. And you bought a jacket, and you got it half off. But your friend got a jacket, and they got it for 1/3 off. Now, typically, a half of something is bigger than a third of something. But in this case, the original price of the jacket is your whole. If your jacket was originally $100, then half off means you got it for $50. But if your friend's jacket's original price was $60, then a third off means they paid $40. So in this case, a third off gave them a cheaper jacket than your half off did because the wholes weren't the same. Now, if you each bought a $100 original price jacket, yours would have been $50 and theirs would have been $66 and some change. Now that the wholes are the same, you can really compare about who got the better deal. But it's hard to do that when the wholes are not the same. That's why it's so important that you ask, it depends, or you say, it depends, because that is what is going to help you know whether you're comparing like things or not. It probably sounds pretty simple right now when I'm just talking about halves and thirds, but fractions start to get more complicated the further and further you go on in school. Imagine when you're sitting in a high school class and the fraction isn't 1/2, it's like 1/x or 1/x plus 1. Those fractions, in order to be compared, must also come from the same size whole. If they don't, none of the formulas and none of the things that you use to figure out those problems actually work. So, if you want to help make sure that your kids have a solid grasp of fractions, teach them to say, it depends. If someone asks them to compare or someone asks them to do something with fractions, teach them to always ask, are these fractions coming from the same size whole or are they different sized wholes? Because depending on the answer to that, that determines what I can and cannot do. My name's Jeff Dean, and I'm Math Dad.